The concrete sprawled like a forgotten skeleton, silent and abandoned. Somewhere between the cracked runways and empty departure halls, something had gone terribly wrong with this airport. Most travelers would never notice such a place, a terminal frozen in time, waiting for passengers who would never arrive. In the small mountain town of Provo, Utah, an airport terminal sat like a ghost, its windows reflecting nothing but empty landscapes and distant mountain ranges. Local pilots whispered stories about mandatory landing fees that had transformed this once bustling transportation hub into a monument of bureaucratic failure. The terminal's history wasn't just about infrastructure. It was about human ambition collapsing under its own weight. Imagine an airport where no airplane has landed in decades, where departure boards remain eternally frozen, displaying flights that will never take off. This wasn't science fiction, but a bizarre reality playing out in plain sight. The terminal's infrastructure remained intact, gleaming floors, pristine security checkpoints, baggage carousels waiting silently, yet absolutely nobody moved through its spaces. The story began like many infrastructure mysteries, with unexpected economics and human decision-making. Landing fees, those seemingly innocuous administrative charges, had become a silent executioner for this airport. When local pilots discovered the fees were prohibitively expensive, they simply stopped coming. One by one, flights disappeared, schedules evaporated, and the terminal transformed from a vibrant transportation center into a surreal time capsule. Walking through such an airport feels like entering a parallel universe. Fluorescent lights still flicker, computer systems hum with phantom energy, and security cameras continue tracking absolutely nothing. Here's Section 1 for the airport terminal nobody uses. The terminal exists in a state of perpetual readiness, prepared for travelers, yet experiencing total abandonment. Every architectural detail speaks of massive investment and equally massive failure. Gleaming metal surfaces, carefully designed wayfinding signs, perfectly maintained restrooms, all waiting for human interaction that never arrives. Local residents treated the airport like a strange municipal artifact. Some saw it as an embarrassment, others as a curious monument to bureaucratic overreach. Younger generations knew it only as the weird empty building on the edge of town, a place more myth than functional infrastructure. Occasional urban explorers would slip past perimeter fences, documenting the terminal's eerie preservation, a snapshot of transportation technology suspended between function and total obsolescence. The terminal wasn't just an empty building. It represented something more profound, a testament to how quickly human systems can collapse, how fragile our most ambitious infrastructure projects truly are. The first whispers of the terminal's decline emerged not with a dramatic collapse, but with a quiet bureaucratic decision that would ripple through the entire aviation ecosystem. Local pilots began noticing something strange. The landing fees had become increasingly punitive, transforming what was once a welcoming gateway into a financial minefield. One miscalculation, one poorly conceived fee structure, and an entire transportation ecosystem could vanish overnight, leaving behind nothing but concrete, steel, and unanswered questions. Each touchdown now carried a price tag so steep that many small aircraft operators simply began routing around the airport, treating it like a forbidden zone in their navigation charts. Municipal records from that period tell a fascinating story of incremental abandonment. Where once dozens of flights would crisscross the runway daily, the traffic gradually thinned to a trickle, then to sporadic single-engine planes making rare, hesitant approaches. The airport's infrastructure remained pristine, meticulously maintained yet hauntingly empty, a monument to administrative miscalculation. Perfectly polished terminals gleamed under fluorescent lights, their surfaces reflecting nothing but rows of unoccupied chairs and silent check-in counters. Technology became both witness and accomplice to this slow-motion disappearance. The airport's digital systems continued running with algorithmic precision, displaying departure times for flights that would never arrive, generating wait time estimates for passengers who no longer existed. CSA wait time applications, notoriously inaccurate since 2012, became an unintentional metaphor for the terminal's surreal disconnection from reality. Screens flickered with phantom flight information, a digital séance summoning memories of bustling travel that had long since evaporated. Local aviation experts began documenting the phenomenon, treating the terminal like an archaeological site of modern infrastructure. They mapped the gradual erosion of commercial interest, tracking how each removed flight route represented another nail in the airport's metaphorical coffin. Interviews with retired air traffic controllers revealed a complex narrative of bureaucratic decisions, economic pressures, and shifting transportation dynamics that transformed a once promising transportation hub into a ghost of technological ambition. The terminal's physical preservation became its own strange testament. Unlike abandoned industrial sites that quickly decay, this airport remained in a state of suspended animation. Climate-controlled, dusted regularly, its navigation systems periodically updated, despite having no actual traffic. It existed in a liminal space between active infrastructure and historical artifact, a concrete time capsule preserving the precise moment when human connectivity began to fragment and reroute around traditional transportation paradigms. By 2005, the abandoned terminal had become a peculiar urban artifact, attracting urban explorers and architectural historians who saw it as more than just a failed infrastructure project. Photographers would sneak past rusted chain-link fences, capturing the surreal emptiness of departure halls, where no announcements ever crackled through the speakers and no luggage ever rolled across polished floors. The terminal's pristine condition, preserved like a time capsule, suggested not decay, but a kind of suspended animation, as if waiting for some impossible resurrection. Beneath the surface of this architectural stillness, complex economic forces were reshaping regional transportation networks. Smaller regional airports began cannibalizing routes, while emerging digital communication technologies slowly eroded the necessity of physical travel. The terminal stood as a silent witness to these transformative shifts, its empty corridors and pristine waiting areas becoming an unintentional museum of late 20th century transportation infrastructure. Small regional carriers calculated that landing here was equivalent to burning money, with fees that sometimes exceeded the ticket prices of the flights themselves. The mathematics of aviation had rendered this terminal not just unused, but economically radioactive. Digital mapping technologies began treating the terminal as a ghost, a cartographic anomaly that existed in satellite images but disappeared from functional transportation networks. GPS systems would occasionally glitch, showing phantom flight paths converging on this abandoned node, while navigation apps simply routed travelers around its perimeter. The terminal had become less of a transportation infrastructure and more of a digital null space, existing simultaneously everywhere and nowhere in the evolving algorithmic landscape of modern travel. Architectural preservation committees started documenting the terminal's unique status, recognizing it as a rare specimen of late 20th century transportation design. Its clean lines, modernist waiting areas, and perfectly maintained infrastructure represented a moment of infrastructural optimism that had been completely disrupted by technological and economic shifts. Researchers would compare it to archaeological sites, a perfectly preserved snapshot of an infrastructure ecosystem that no longer made sense in the rapidly evolving digital transportation landscape. Rumors began circulating among local aviation enthusiasts about the terminal's potential resurrection. Some whispered about secret government projects, while others speculated about potential tech industry investments that might transform the space into something entirely different. The terminal's absolute emptiness had become a canvas for wild speculation, its unused potential serving as a Rorschach test for local imagination. Every abandoned corridor and silent check-in counter became a potential portal to alternative futures, waiting for someone, anyone, to rewrite its dormant narrative. The terminal's isolation grew more pronounced with each passing year. Where once it had represented cutting-edge transportation infrastructure, it now stood as a monument to obsolescence, a concrete and steel testament to how quickly technological ecosystems could render massive investments completely irrelevant. Its perfectly maintained hallways and immaculate waiting areas continued to exist, silently challenging the very notion of utility and purpose in an age of rapid, unpredictable transformation. Local officials had long since abandoned any hope of reviving the terminal, treating it like a forgotten piece of municipal infrastructure. A concrete ghost that consumed maintenance budgets without generating a single dollar of revenue. Property tax records showed the terminal remained technically operational despite zero commercial activity, a bureaucratic fiction that kept it suspended in administrative limbo. Investigative journalists who eventually traced the terminal's decline discovered a complex web of economic miscalculations. Landing fees had been set so prohibitively high that pilots and small airlines simply routed around the location, treating it like a financial black hole. What was meant to generate revenue had instead created a perfect ecosystem of avoidance, a self-defeating economic strategy that transformed a potentially vibrant transportation hub into a sterile monument to governmental miscalculation. Fascinating technological artifacts remained frozen in time within the terminal's walls. Digital display boards still flickered with phantom flight information, their software perpetually updating routes to destinations that would never see a single passenger. Security checkpoints stood pristine, metal detectors calibrated and ready, surveillance cameras continuously recording an audience of absolutely nobody. It was as if an entire transportation infrastructure had been perfectly preserved in amber, waiting for a civilization that would never arrive. Each visit revealed new layers of institutional memory. Abandoned coffee shops with pristine ceramic mugs, rental car counters with brochures still neatly stacked, baggage claim carousels gleaming under fluorescent lights that had never known the weight of a single suitcase. This was more than an abandoned building. It was a time capsule of unrealized potential. The terminal's ultimate fate seemed predetermined, a slow descent into controlled demolition or gradual structural decay. Yet its existence posed profound questions about infrastructure, investment, and the ephemeral nature of human planning. In an era of rapid technological transformation, this silent terminal stood as a powerful metaphor. Sometimes our most ambitious constructions become obsolete before they're even fully realized. For those fascinated by such stories of technological and architectural mystery, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because every abandoned space has a story waiting to be uncovered, and you won't want to miss what forgotten infrastructure we'll explore next.